honor our fallen veterans, and we also should honor all our veterans. We thought it would be appropriate to spend a little bit of time in a town hall setting, just answering questions and talking to people about some of the issues that they're currently facing. What my intentions are, should I be president, in order to make sure that our veterans are protected.
Thank you, Senator Obama. My name is Jeff Pershing, an 8-year veteran of the U.S. Navy. I wanted to know if we are ever going to guarantee the health care costs and take them out of the discretionary budget for the VA, while the administrators are guaranteed their salaries.
Well, here are a couple of steps that I think we have to do. Number one, we have to guarantee that the VA budget is passed on time. That it is and I'm going to work with leaders of Congress for a must-pass veterans budget. There are other things we can defer. That is not one of them. It also means that we have accurate planning and that we have accurate budgeting. Because what's been happening year after year under this administration is about halfway through the year, suddenly they come back and say, you know what, we didn't ask for enough money. And sometimes at the beginning of the year, we're insisting that they take more money and they won't take it. Only to come find out later. And part of it is budget games. They don't want to over-report how much this war is costing and how much it costs to care for our veterans. So that's the second. The third thing that we have to do is to make sure that we are ending the policy of Priority 8 veterans no longer being eligible for the VA. I think it is important for all veterans to be eligible for the VA. And that is something that I'm going to reverse when I'm President of the United States. And obviously, at the top of the VA budget has to be healthcare. So if it's properly planned, properly funded, and everybody has the eligibility that we need, then my expectation is that every single veteran who is eligible for benefits is going to get their benefits that year. Now, we're going to have to do some other work. There are a lot of VA hospitals that are in bad shape. They have to be improved. We have to do a better job of keeping medical records than we've been doing. Part of the reason that many are delayed from getting their disability payments and their veterans benefits is because the records are not kept electronically and immediately transferred from the Department of Defense to the VA. We are going to change that. We have to make sure that we continue. The VA has made some progress in terms of managing the chronically ill more effectively. We actually should continue to improve technology in veterans health care. But the thing that I think is most frustrating to me right now is the fact that we don't have adequate mental health services for our veterans. That is chronically underfunded. We're going to have hundreds of thousands of new veterans coming in. Many of them suffer post-traumatic stress disorder. They are not being diagnosed quickly enough. They're not getting the services that they need quickly enough. And sadly, the group of veterans that are probably being most neglected in this area are women veterans. We've got to do a better job of creating facilities specifically for women's veterans. And part of what we need is to recognize that oftentimes our women service members are more prone to post-traumatic stress disorder, partly because there is a sad but real problem of sexual harassment and sexual abuse for women veterans, and that makes them much more prone than to have post-traumatic stress disorder. So there are a whole host of issues we need to work on that front. Last point I would make, we have to have better VA clinics that are available, because too many veterans who live in rural communities are having to drive 4 hours just to access the VA. And it is just not appropriate. Obviously, we may not be able to have state-of-the-art, MRIs and equipment in every single facility. But what we can make sure of is that there are enough clinics out there that for basic checkups, problems that are outpatient situations, that people don't have to drive 2 or 3 hours. And that's something that I'm going to make sure is budgeted.
Yes, I'm a former Hyde Parker. Matter of fact,
You're a constituent.
yes,
Absolutely.
long distance. However, one of the things that veterans face when they return to civilian life is establishing themselves with businesses. And the Small Business Administration currently is a toothless tiger that does not manage its resources. Would you consider thinking of placing the percentage of the purchasing budget of different federal departments under the administration of the Small Business Administration?
Well, we have to completely revamp our small business industry. It is an example of, I think, a sleepy bureaucracy. There's some good programs, but generally, it has not kept pace with a rapidly expanding, highly competitive and technologically savvy economy. And so, and part of the problem is there's not enough outreach. The SBA all too often just stays in a building somewhere. And if you happen to know where to go and what programs are available, maybe it helps you, maybe it doesn't. But I want a much more aggressive SBA, one that's reaching out, and I want it particularly to reach out to our veterans. This whole transition in terms of veterans coming home and establishing themselves economically, there are a bunch of different components to it. Number one is what we just talked about, which is making sure that the GI Bill for a 21st century is passed. And although George Bush has threatened to veto it, our intention is to override that veto when it comes back to the House and the Senate, because we should make sure that today's veterans get the same benefit that my grandfather got when he came back from World War II. It was a good investment not only for him, but it was a good investment for the country. It built our middle class. So we're going to make sure that that gets passed, because we've got to have outstanding educational opportunities for veterans when they come home. The second thing is we've got to work on how the Department of Labor deals with our veterans. Our young veterans are more likely to be unemployed than civilians. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And that means that we're not working more effectively enough. Many of them have shown extraordinary leadership in the military. And that leadership is transferable to the work that they do as civilians, but we're not doing enough to help them manage that transition and place them in job training and make sure that, for example, laws that prohibit them being discriminated against if they're serving, that those laws are enforced. That's the second thing. And the third thing is making sure that we're helping them with business startups. Many of them have shown extraordinary initiative. They've got entrepreneurial skills, but they may need capital, they may need technical assistance, and the SBA has to do a better job of working with them. And our federal purchasers should look at how we can provide more effective business opportunities to veterans than are currently being provided. Thank you.